Welcome to the Schools of Excellence podcast, a place for insightful conversations about building sustainable schools of excellence. Join me each week as we explore the importance of leading with your values, creating impact, and leaving a lasting legacy. My goal on the show is to provide you with clarity, elevate your mindset, and equip you with practical strategies and inspiration. I'm Chanie, a proud mother of four, a former New Yorker, now savoring sunny Florida vibes. With a professional journey spanning 18 years across all levels of school leadership, I bring nuanced insight that delve into the intricate details of running a center, as well as the broader visionary aspects of leadership. Thank you for joining me for this conversation. Let's build a legacy of excellence together. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Schools of Excellence podcast. So today is the second episode in our three-part series on veteran versus newbies. And today's conversation is about professional development opportunities. And this is a topic that I'm very passionate about because, well, for a lot of reasons. But one of the things is that I see a lot of copycatting and a little bit of the blind leading the blind when it comes to professional development. And I've come up with really four common themes that I see in professional development in the early childhood field specifically. And I think it's important when we're entering a conversation around how to support veteran and newbies, specifically in the context of professional development. First, we have to understand what are some of the trends or conversations that are even happening inside of the industry. So one of the themes that I see is the bandwagon effect, right? Which is this tendency to adopt an idea or a trend simply because everyone else is doing it without a lot of considerance or really relevance to its effectiveness or its efficiency for you. So the bandwagon effect is very, very common, specifically in the digital age of social media, where you as a consumer who's listening to this, you are part of a lot of different Facebook groups, mentoring programs, possibly going to different events. And there are a lot of ideas that are shared around professional development opportunities for your teams. And so there's kind of this bandwagon effect that happens where it's like, okay, everyone's doing this thing. Everyone's hiring this person. Everyone's talking about this topic. Everyone's investing in this particular thing. And then you go and you make that investment without considering, is this really the core need of my organization? I'm going to talk about that in a minute after I share with you the four themes. So the second thing that I'll see a lot is blind adherence. So a lot of leaders unquestionably really just adhere to these perceived consensus or the, popular opinions without really looking at different perspectives or different solutions. So again, very similar to the bandwagon effect, but this is just this blind listening of like, okay, this is the popular opinion. This is what everyone does when it comes to professional development with veterans, or this is what everyone does when they are opening their second location, or this is what everyone does when they are hiring an assistant director. And so I'm going to go do that also, right? Blind adherence comes from a leader that is overwhelmed by options and also overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that are on their plate. And so they subscribe to blind adherence because it's like, okay, that's one less thing that I have to critically think through. That is one less thing that I have to filter through my company values. That is one less thing that I actually have to use brain capacity to think through. That is why people typically lean to blind adherence. It's not because they're not smart or they don't have their own opinions or they can't think critically. They are sometimes so overwhelmed and don't have the mental bandwidth. So they delegate the decision-making to other people who actually have absolutely no idea what your business's needs are. That's blind adherence. And you see that a lot in today's culture, not just in the early childhood field, look across the country and across the world, really. So that's another theme that I see happen a lot when it comes to professional development. Another one, FOMO, fear of missing out. There is so much, again, this is in a digital age, where you see other people that are doing this, or other people are posting this, or other people are sharing this, and you're like, oh, I got to get on the bandwagon. I gotta see what's going on over here. So there's a lot of fear of missing out on opportunities, missing out on certain things. And so leaders will invest in certain professional development training or do certain things when it's really not what they actually need. And the last one, which I think has become the disease of kind of this decade, or kind of this new era of leadership, which is decision by committee. And decision by committee is asking everyone for their opinion before you actually know what you want, or asking yourself what you need and what you actually desire. I see decision by committee anytime I go to events. You have a person, a school leader who goes from table to table and asking everyone what they think or what their ideas are. I just want, hear from another person or hear from another person. And then your mind becomes clouded with everyone else's opinions. That is decision by committee. You do not need a committee every single time you make a decision. You need to learn how to trust yourself. And that is a much harder skill. And so these are the 4 common things: the bandwagon effect, blind adherence, fear of missing out, and decision by committee. In order to move away from this when it comes to specifically the lens of professional development, this is where diagnostics and self-trust really come into play, which are the foundational pillars of the Schools of Excellence membership, right? I don't want to create more followers. I want to create leaders. I don't want more followers. I want a community of people that know how to lead themselves. Self-leadership. Self-leadership comes from understanding how to discern what actually is working inside of your school and where the gaps are. And that comes from good diagnostics. That is why our company is consistently creating diagnostic tools and assessments that ensure that leaders are asking themselves the right questions. And self-trust. This is where the mentorship and the coaching and being in community build self-trust, because being a critical thinker is hard. It forces you to wrestle with your own ideas, your own beliefs, your own perceptions of the world around you. And it really invites you to step into a place where you have to get quiet and you have to ask yourself hard questions. And I think one of the greatest gifts that I've been blessed with my own mentors, is they always ensure that I'm listening to my own voice. And specifically when it comes to professional development opportunities, it is so important to make sure that you're listening to mentorship, but you're also learning how to listen to yourself. You're inviting the pause to reflecting your own values. And, I had this interaction with a private client of mine just a couple of weeks ago at the time of this recording. And she had sent me, our private clients that work with me one-on-one, they have texting access to me where they can text me some questions. And she texted me a particular question. She wanted my feedback on something that she was creating. And she sent me the graphic and wanted me to kind of give my thoughts. And I said, I know you want me to tell you what to do. And that would be the easy thing for me to do right now. I could just tell you yes or no, or this or that, or whatever it is. Option A, option B, option C. But that's not what I'm going to do, because you didn't hire me to do that. You hired me to coach, to mentor, to up-level you. And so I pushed her and I asked her other questions. And I was like, you need to trust your decision-making. I want you to listen to, what do you need to do next? What do you believe should happen with this graphic? And she got back to me, and it was so difficult for her because she really wanted me to tell her what to do. So I'll actually read to you what she said. I said to her, I want you to journal. Okay, so I ended out this part. So I had a client who sent me a message. She wanted my feedback on something. And she said, I said to her, I want you to journal it. I want it to come from within you. Your creative soul knows what it needs to do. Listen to it, get quiet, and listen. And she got back to me. She said, no, I really just want answers. And I said, I know you want answers, but that's not what you're going to find in me as a mentor. I'm here to teach you how to dig deep, because in the pursuit of the hardest things in life is where you will meet yourself. And she said, thank you so much for inviting me to dig deep in real time. And she made a decision about what she needed to do. And then she said, have an amazing weekend. And thanks for being willing to help me on the journey and not let me get away with easy and try to figure out why I would choose to show up with this in a certain way or in different ways. Cheers to many more moments like this together. So why am I sharing this with you? Because as you choose professional development opportunities for your veteran or for your new staff, it's really important to understand how to train your team to learn how to listen to themselves. You are the mentor of your team, and creating those opportunities is so important. So important. Okay, so let's dive into some of the differences between veteran and new staff. Okay. So professional development for veteran staff is they're really looking for more advanced training opportunities. They want, specialized training sessions or workshops that cater to like kind of specific expertise. So they're looking for some leadership development, more specialized content knowledge. They're not looking for foundational stuff, which I'll go into a minute of what, the new teachers want. Some other things, some other professional development for veteran staff is veteran staff like peer-led workshops. They actually enjoy sharing expertise by leading workshops. They find a lot of joy in that kind of professional development. It doesn't only benefit the other staff, but it really provides a lot of validation and recognition for the veteran teachers. And so peer-led workshops is a phenomenal way to develop your veteran staff. Veteran teachers are also looking for a lot of collaborative learning communities. They're looking for opportunities to engage in deeper discussions, sharing better best practices, and they're looking at having deeper conversations around complex educational challenges because they've mastered a lot of the foundational stuff. And the other thing that veterans are looking for in professional development is mentorship opportunities. Veterans actually want to serve as mentors or coaches for newer colleagues. And I know a lot of you are listening to this and saying, oh, we tried all these mentorship programs. They don't really want to. It's more work for them. That's the key here. Are you inviting or presenting it as more work for them? No one wants more work. No one wants more tasks. No one wants more responsibilities. But there are certain teachers inside of your school right now that would absolutely love to take on mentorship roles within the school. Okay. What are some professional development opportunities that the newer staff are looking for? Okay. New staff need foundational training on essential topics like classroom management, lesson planning, right? They need parent-teacher communication strategies. They need to understand behavioral management techniques, classroom environment design. They need foundational training. Veteran teachers do not want to be put into a workshop on classroom design. They know how to design a classroom. If it's going to be on classroom design, they're looking for a different level of conversation there. So really understand how you're setting up professional development opportunities. Another thing that newer teachers are seeking in professional development opportunity is something I call the gradual release of responsibility. So implementing a gradual release of responsibility model where new staff members are gradually given more autonomy, more responsibility in their teaching practices. This is such a beautiful way to professionally develop a newer teacher through a gradual release of responsibility. I know leaders are constantly talking about how they want the new staff to be more responsible, to be more accountable, to be more discerning, to uplevel their quality of thinking. The way that you professionally develop a new teacher to take on these things is the gradual release of responsibility. So think about it from this component of like parenting. So Mayor and I are raising 2 teenagers right now. And teenagers have this kind of fluctuation where they go from like being a toddler to being an adult and like vacillating between emotions and all these different things. I saw this really cute meme on Instagram where it's like, you have a teenager when they make plans, like they have their own car and their own bank account. And I was like, yes, spot on. Like, our kids come home and they're like, oh, I have this thing with this kid and this thing with this friend and I need to buy this thing. And I'm like, you don't have your own car. You do not own a cell phone and you don't have your own money to be able to do these things. So I love that you made all those plans. Let's have a conversation now. So anyways, my point in saying that is the gradual release of responsibility is showing your teenager like, hey, you want more trust. You want more responsibility. You want to be treated like an adult. You have to prove that you have what it takes to be treated as such. It is earned responsibility, right? So freedom without discipline is anarchy. And so you want the freedom of an adult. You need the discipline also that adults need in order to be a true grown-up. So if you only get the freedom, we will have anarchy, and anarchy will not exist in my household. And so the same thing is as a school leader, the gradual release of responsibility for your newer staff is such a beautiful way to invite professional development. So let's talk about some practical ways of what that looks like, the gradual release of responsibility. One is co-teaching. So initially, new staff members can co-teach with more experienced educators to observe, to learn effective teaching practices. And then gradually they take on more responsibilities. So let's say they start to plan one learning circle, or they plan one particular art lesson, or they plan a particular transition, right? very small baby steps. And this is, again, this is professional development. Like, this is what it is. You like giving opportunity for the co-teaching, where the newer teacher is now, you are responsible for the morning learning circle, right? And now that is her opportunity to go and do research and plan and actually teach that first learning circle of the day. Another way that we do gradual release of responsibility is modeling. Okay. So veteran teachers coming in, or your directors, modeling instructional strategies, classroom management techniques. It really allows new staff to see effective practices from more experienced educators. That's professional development. Every time your director walks into a room and does modeling or role playing, they are doing professional development for this teacher. So why am I saying that? It's so important to understand what your directors are doing so they create value on the right activity and don't over glorify and worship the wrong metrics. Okay. So many directors say, I don't have time to get into the classroom. I have to go prepare this professional development thing. I don't have time to go and role play this thing or model this thing because I have to go do X, Y, and Z. Every time your director goes into a classroom and does role playing and does modeling and that is professional development. Literally, that's professional development. And I want you to flip your mindset around that so that you can help your directors prioritize how important these activities are versus office admin work that is just easier and gives a higher hit of dopamine. And that's really why they go and seek that. And I teach this all in extensive length in our foundations inside of our Schools of Excellence membership, where we really help directors and owners discern the value of their time and priorities and how to make sure that they're focusing on the right things. And professional development is such a key thing that they need to be working on. So what's another way to do gradual release of responsibility is collaborative planning. So engaging new staff members in collaborative lesson planning with their colleagues. So you can start by providing some templates or frameworks that help the new teacher with the planning process and gradually transition to more independent planning, right? As they become more familiar with curriculum standards, as they become more familiar with instructional goals, now they can do more independent planning. This is professional development. You are trying to create independent thinkers and independent leaders inside of the classrooms. And yet so many of the practices that leaders are doing are actually fostering a culture of dependence and reliability, relying on the leader for the wrong things. And the leader becomes this crutch. And so this is why I believe so strongly in this concept of the gradual release of responsibility. So let's go a little bit further. Where are some other professional development opportunities for newer staff? Self-assessment tools, right? Providing staff, this is both for veteran and newbies, with self-assessment tools and rubrics so that they can evaluate their teaching practices against established criteria standards. This helps them understand how to push themselves. So in the Schools of Excellence membership, we have something called the 6 performance keys, or the 6 key areas that all teachers need to constantly work on to become a teacher of excellence. And we have a rubric and a whole training platform. And then we've also had a lot of different owners and directors that have created bonus infrastructure and raises and promotions around the 6 performance keys and different hiring practices. And they've used this rubric as a way to really elevate the professional development and quality of care inside of their centers. And so we've done multiple roundtable conversations. Actually, something that we do inside of the membership frequently is roundtables where we invite directors and owners inside of our membership to share best practices that they're doing inside of their centers. And so we did, I think, 2 or 3 roundtables actually just around the 6 performance keys to help leaders understand how to use this rubric really well. If you've been in my community for a long time, you know I'm obsessed with assessments and diagnostics, but I create my own. And why do I create our own diagnostics is because the diagnostics that are out there are not specific and custom tailored to early childhood development. So the Enneagram, the Myers-Briggs, all of these things, they're all great and fun. And they kind of give you a little bit of context, but what you're those are like more personality style. Diagnostic tools help you actually say, okay, this teacher is strong in classroom management, but they are weak in their teacher communication skills. So if they're weak in classroom management, if they're strong in classroom management or weak in teacher communication skills, what are the steps that need to take now to up-level their classroom management, right? An Enneagram diagnostic tool or whatever it is, that doesn't tell you what you're supposed to do. It's a different personality test. And there's validity to it, and it's great. And I love a good personality test. And make sure that you're also using real diagnostic tools that help you discern what is actually going on in your center. And this is why our company has been so committed to it. We've actually, over the years, we've created 4 different diagnostic tools that sit inside of our membership that our clients use consistently to assess the quality of what's happening in their teachers, in their performance, in their culture, in their leadership team, and the skill set. We have multiple different diagnostics that we've created. So let's go a step further. I want to share with you kind of a couple different stories around veteran and some new teachers. So we had an owner who had a veteran teacher. Her name was, we'll call her Lisa. Again, when I share stories, always remember that I change some names and identifying details to protect the privacy of our clients. And so Lisa had been in this particular school for a little over 2 decades, and she was a highly skilled educator. And she started to kind of drop these hints that she was interested in exploring new teaching methodologies, and mainly in how to do a little bit more technology integration. She wanted to keep her instruction a little bit more fresh, a little bit more engaging. And what was interesting actually is because this teacher was mainly dropping it through the form of hints, the owner wasn't really picking up on it. And the way that she had ended up picking up on it was that during a one-on-one, Lisa was telling the owner, she's like, I feel so underappreciated here. I don't really feel like I'm being valued. I've been in the company for such a long time. And the owner was so taken aback by this kind of response. And she didn't really know what to say. So she kind of just heard her out and said, I'll get back to you. And then we had a coaching call a couple of days later after that conversation. She got on the coaching call and she's like, I don't understand why I was being attacked by this veteran teacher. Like, she feels like I don't appreciate her. And she's like, we have so many different gratitude and appreciation practices. And if you're looking for more gratitude and appreciation practices, you can check out episode 3 on the podcast. It's called the Gratitude Matrix. And so she's like, we follow this practice religiously. And she's like, I don't understand, what's going on. And so I started to ask questions because that's what I do. I don't give ideas and tips and tricks right away. And through a series of questions, we came to realize that this owner actually hadn't invested in any type of professional development for this veteran teacher in a while. And as we're having this conversation, she's like, oh my gosh, she's actually been dropping these hints around, wanting to do certain things. And I was like, okay, great. So now go talk to her and see what she's actually looking for. And she came back to her and she, apologized for not picking up on the hints. And she asked, for the future, please be more direct. And she actually sent her to this conference that had a very big focus on technology integration, specifically in the early childhood field. And the teacher came back like a new person. Like, she was so grateful. She only sent this one teacher. And that was a whole nother thing the owner had to kind of wrestle with, where she was like, oh my gosh, I'm only going to send her, and all the other teachers, like, they also want to go, and it's not fair. Why am I only sending her? And I'm like, here's what you need to stop saying. And I have a whole podcast episode on stopping the fairness game. So stop obsessing over fairness. Okay. It's not about, life is not fair. Okay. That's the first thing. And it's not supposed to be fair. And this particular teacher has requested opportunities for professional development. She's been in your company for over 20 years. This is a unique opportunity for her. And no, the 20-year-old teacher who just came in 3 weeks ago doesn't need to go to this technology conference. They will gain nothing from this experience. And so I love that she let go of the fairness game and was actually able to provide this opportunity for her. So I'll tell you a different story about Annie. So we had a very, very, very young teacher, call her Annie. And I was on a director's coaching call, and I was talking to the director, and she was talking about this teacher, Annie, who was navigating her very first year in the classroom. And she had a lot of passion and commitment and high levels of integrity. And the director was struggling because, just like all new teachers, she was facing challenges in classroom management and how to do differentiated learning. And so Annie was struggling. And the director was having a hard time understanding how to really coach her or, develop her as a teacher. And what was happening is the director kind of kept coming in to try to control the behaviors in the classroom. So something would go wrong in classroom management and the director would come in and swoop in and solve the problem or save the day. Like she was like the hero in the cape, going and taking care of all the kids. And when I was talking with the director, I said, how do you think Annie feels about you coming in and being the savior? And I found the director's response very fascinating. She said, I think she really likes it because I come in and I just take care of it for her so she doesn't have to do it. And I said, I'm going to offer you a different way of looking at this. I think you like the fact that you are the savior and come in and take care of all these things. So she was quiet and she's like, yeah, it feels good that I can go in and do that. I said, I know. And you're not a teacher anymore. Your job is to take care of the teachers who take care of the children. And so you're not taking care of Annie right now. You're not developing her professionally. You are taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your insecurity that something's wrong in the classroom. You're taking care of your own ego that you want everything to be perfect inside of your building. And you need to develop Annie. And so we spoke a little bit more, asked her some more questions. And so we targeted one particular area of classroom management that, if Annie developed that particular area, which was transitions, things would be a lot smoother inside of the classroom. And so we have a training inside that you can actually purchase separately as well if you're interested. It's all about classroom management and transitions. We could put a link here inside of the show notes as well. And she invested in that training. She sat down with Annie. She showed her the training with her co-teacher, and she started to implement these different strategies of classroom management. And it was amazing for Annie just to learn new tools, new ways of saying certain things, which was a super powerful experience for Annie. So the thing that, again, I want to highlight here is understanding what your staff actually need, right? This is why I talk about diagnostic tools. We have the culture tension decoder. That's another diagnostic tool on assessing the core tensions inside of the organization so that you know what are the things that you actually need to work on. And all of these diagnostics are inside of the membership. So I want to leave you with this. I want to kind of wrap up this episode. It's getting a little bit long here. In that, as you're developing what some of your next trainings will look like, some of your next staff meetings, some of your next professional development opportunities, I want you to come back and re-listen to this episode and ask yourself, is this fueling mainly the veterans, mainly the newbies? Am I kind of on the bandwagon effect by hiring this person or by investing in this training? And I hope today's episode invited you to be just a little bit more discerning as a leader when it comes to professional development. So thanks so much for joining me. And next week, we're going to dive into leadership and decision making. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do two things for me. One, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And two, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week. And I appreciate that you have joined us.